Saving content. Welcome, fellow druids, to the first circle, full circle. First circle? Is that the name of the show? Full circle of 2019. And we're gonna kick it off with what some would call a spicy. I don't know if we're still using that word in 2019, but I'm old, so it doesn't really matter what words I say. They're old anyways. Spicy edition. So we're going to be talking about a model, the last model that is new from the Tharn release, and we're going to talk about Iona the Unseen. So we'll run down the stats real quick, and then we'll talk a little bit about her army, what she wants, etc., etc. And I may not get super duper into nuance in this episode since I've been playing her. I certainly there's some events coming up. I'll be playing her at. I think between all of those, there should be some more time for some actual of my experiences and thoughts. But we'll touch on it. Hopefully I don't ramble too much. Anyways, except that's what I do. So Iona the Unseen is a Circle Tharn Warlock. I'm going to stop actually right there. Tharn is an important keyword. It is not black-clad, unlike most of our Warlocks. So there's some synergy she gets and a bunch that she also will not. But just wanted to mention that as not being inconsequential. Anyways, she is Speed 7, Strength 6, Mat 7, Defense 16, Armor 14, Command 9. She is Fury 7. She has Parry, Pathfinder, Stealth. She's on a small base. She has 2 melee weapons. One is called Worm Tooth. It's range 1, power and strength 13, and is damage type magical. And she also has a Fighting Claw at a half-inch that is power and strength 9. She has 16 damage boxes and 28 War Beast points. Furthermore, I'm actually going to talk about her weapons first, which is out of order, but Worm Tooth has the rule Brutal Charge, much like all of the Tharn Ravagers, so she gets +2 to charge attack damage rolls with that weapon. And further, she has Blood Boon, which is once per activation immediately after resolving an attack in which it destroyed an enemy model with this weapon. The model can cast a spell with a cost of 3 or less without spending Fury. Further, she has Dodge. She also has Leadership Tharn. Sorry, I'll go over Dodge just in case you don't remember it, but it is on several, I think 3 War Beasts have this as their animus now. But this model can advance up 2 inches immediately after an enemy attack. That miss it is resolved unless it was missed while advancing. It cannot be targeted by free strikes during this movement. Further, she has Leadership Tharn. While in this model's command range, friendly Tharn models gain Dodge. Her command is 9, as I mentioned on the front side. She has Overtake. So she destroys 1 or more enemy models with basic melee attack during her combat action. After the attack resolves, she can immediately advance up to an inch. And finally, she has Preternatural Reflexes, which states this model cannot be targeted by combined melee or combined ranged attacks, and models do not gain backstrike bonuses against this model. Then the spell list. Her spell currently unique to her, Abattoir. Which is a 2-cost range self AoE control. Models non-offensive. Models in the spellcaster's battle group currently in its control range can immediately make 1 basic melee attack, and it can only be cast once per activation. She has Hunter's Mark, cost 2, range 10, lasts for a turn. It is offensive. If you've played Circle ever, you should be familiar with what this does from Black-Clad Wafer. No change. Friendly models can charge or make slams against a model hit by Hunter's Mark without being forced or spending focus. A friendly model charging an enemy model gains +2 inches of movement, charging when targeted by this spell, or affected by this spell. She has Phantasm, which is a 2-cost range 6 upkeep non-offensive spell. When target friendly faction model / unit is targeted by a ranged attack, the attack suffers -5 range. Models are not affected while out of formation. She has Pursuit, which is a 2-cost range 8 upkeep offensive spell, which is if target enemy model / unit advances during its activation, 1 model in the spellcaster's battle group that is in its control range can immediately make a full advance. And finally, Surefoot, which is a 2-cost range 6 upkeep that is not offensive. Target friendly faction model / unit gains +2 defense and cannot become knocked down. Models are not affected out of formation. And finally, the biggest of deals, her feat, Time of the Beast. And then I proceed to somehow tap off of her card because War Room's fantastic and loves it. While in Iona's control range, friendly Tharn models gain +3 strength and armor. Additionally, while in Iona's control range, friendly faction warrior models can re-roll missed attack rolls. Each roll can be re-rolled only once as a result of Time of the Beast. Time of the Beast lasts for 1 round. So, that's Iona's stat card. We've certainly talked about her leading up. Much of the last half of 2018, I feel like, was a lot of conversation about what Iona might be, what Iona was in CID, and so on and so forth. We touched on her probably on the dynamic update as well, and coming out of War Machine Weekend. So to say that Iona has gotten some attention is probably making an understatement. So, and like I said, there's probably even more to talk about. So she was part of the list pairing that won War Machine Weekend, piloted by Brett Fogel. I would say he had you can go find his list on the Discount Games Incorporated tournament list if you are interested in that. It's notably Double Ravagers, Wolf Riders, Double Stalker. I think I would call that the core of that list. But I do think that there's a lot of different lists that she can do. Now, I will point out, because we're probably going to spend some time as I'm doing episodes, and I don't really know in 2019 exactly what my recording schedule is going to look like, how I'm going to approach episodes. There might be some evolution of what I do and whatnot. So I don't know exactly what other content I'm going to cover as far as Warlocks that play in Devourer's Host or Iona herself. There will probably be more of each, but I don't know what that format's going to take. Anyways, but to talk about her is we should certainly look at her strengths. And there's a lot of things in Tharn that I think are very strong right now, but they're not necessarily all strong with her. And I think there's probably some that are strong with her that some people aren't considering as well. So the big thing to note, there's a lot of different approaches. So I'm just going to hit on a few different Warlocks real quick in Devourer's Host. You've got, I'm going to go with the typical expected Devourer's Host for now. But you've got things like Baldur 1, I would say Grail, Morvana 1, Morvana 2, Iona, Wormwood. That's about it. Mosar's kind of in there as well. Kruger 1's kind of a distant in there. And so you have all those different approaches. And they're all going to approach Tharn somewhat the same, but also with different emphasis. And the emphasis, and I bring that up because the emphasis that I think Iona has that you need to very quickly recognize is a huge amount of her strength actually comes from her feet. With Wormwood, you're going to get a little bit of the feet and a little bit more of control over the game. With either Morvana, you've got strong offensive spells in some ways, as well as recursion. So you've got more of a long game. Baldur's kind of in the middle on that. He has a little bit more focus on anti-blast damage, no knockdown. Solid ground is a big piece of his, but also sort of a different approach with his feet as well. But he does bring some offensive help in Stone Skin, but yeah. Anyways, you get the idea. A Grail is, in my opinion, focused on. He's going to bring some of the best accuracy. He brings some very unique anti-range tools. He brings some threat range increase, and he really focuses on individual pieces power because he has Storm Ranger. And those are kind of the typical. Mosar is still looking at his assassination plan, I think, as plan A, and then doing what he can from there. All of them are going to approach differently, and all of them are going to have different strengths in what they can bring. Iona's strength, in my opinion, is, as I said, her feet, and then from there, a quick read of her feat will show you that she's really focused on the first, I would say, on the strength aspect of her feat. So her strength, her greatest strength is strength. To that end, you want to look at the pieces that are going to use that first part of her feat, in my opinion. I mean, the rerolls are always going to be good, right? But I really do think that you want to focus your list first on taking into effect the offensive portion of her feat. I think we've talked. There's been different talk at different times about people, for example, wishing that Chromac 2's feat just affected everything and that it would be fine if it did, and it might. Though that change will almost certainly never happen now that Iona's got this feat, because they would step on each other's toes too much. But Iona is one of the rare exceptions of an absolutely brutal alpha strike that Circle can engineer. Hunter's Mark helps that a little bit with range, but just in general, one of the things we have never really been able to do, to a degree, is have an infantry, just like a Scar 1, Denegra 1, debuffs are a little different. Scar 1, what else has a big damage feat? There's a bunch of them out there, but Scar 1 is the one that occurs to me the most because you're getting strength and armor. It's only 3, but you're getting something where we can deal a tremendous amount of damage on a single turn. And then that's getting backed up, in some cases, by access to a defensive portion of the feat, right? So plus 3 armor. So she's really going to dial her her infantry up to 11, to use a cliche. And you really want to be focusing on that. So which things focus on that? Well, I would say right off the bat, she's probably, while I think Tharn Bloodpact with their changes are decent and strong, I would not play them with her. That's not to say that if they happen to be in her list that there isn't something she can do to make them work, but I don't think they particularly synergize with her because of our ranged attacks, they are not taking any advantage whatsoever of her offensive portion of her feat, and there's just better places to put them. So that's the first thing I would eliminate. But most of the rest of what's left in Devourer's Host is making melee attacks or using their strength. And I want to highlight that last piece because Tharn Blood Trackers and Tharn Wolf Riders, while they are using some aspect of range, the fact that they get bonus, that they have thrown weapons, means that the strength will still apply offensively to them as well. Then what does she want to take? So I would say I would say pretty much most of the Tharn list, you can make a pretty easy justification to play Lord of the Feast. He's very, very, very good right now. We may do an entire video revisiting him at some point. Bridget and Call, which we did a video about sometime late last year, are still good with her. The amount of damage she can allow them to output is ludicrous, frankly. It is not out of the realm of possibility for them, even without Divine Inspiration on Call, with that feat, to kill Colossals. I would generally say if you can chip in a little bit extra, they can absolutely kill a Colossal. So just something to keep in mind. I don't think I've put them on a heavy that they have not killed. I've put them on lights a couple times, and the last time I did this, in fact, a Winter Troll, full life, under the Krill Stone, and Call did not buy an attack, and it died. So I think that was Bridget Assault, Bridget Charge, Call Charge, dead. My dice were a little hot, but still happened. And it wasn't Prey. So, maybe I chipped one attack in. It doesn't matter. They killed that Winter Troll dead. So that gives you a sense for them. But if we start looking at the other units that she's going to want to take, I think you definitely can make a case for any of the ones that I mentioned still have strength. So Ravagers probably have the most synergy with her feat, right? +3 strength takes their charges to power and strength 18, which is always going to be significant. Makes their bot attacks power 16, which is still going to be pretty significant. And they all start with the corpse, so they'll generally be able to buy an attack, or they can boost to make sure they hit, etc., etc. And then they take the best advantage of the armor portion of the feat as well, because they're going up to armor 18, and with rapid healing, where before, if you know, we talked about how when they are armor 15 with rapid healing, that they're generally able to shrug off most POW 10s. They're doing decent against most POW 12s, and then of course they have the fact that if they make a tough check, they're still doing okay. When they get up to armor 18, now we're starting to talk about a situation where they're virtually immune to POW 10s. They're virtually immune to POW. I'm talking unboosted attacks here. They're virtually immune to boosted or unboosted POW 12s, and they start being immune to even some bigger damage potential. Right, even a boosted POW 10 against armor 18 is likely to do about 3 damage, which is too short of how many you needed to do, which means they might heal all of that back, and you just triggered vengeance. So Ravagers are probably a ton of lists with Iona are using a double Ravager core, and for good reason. They're very good. From there's a lot of different units you can consider. Thorn Wolf Riders are quite good. They take Surefoot is very good. Giving +2 defense and no knockdown is obviously very good on Ravagers as well, because again they have tough, and they can go to defense 15. They can potentially go to 17 in the forest. Wolf Riders are defense 15 naturally, so putting it on them makes them defense 17, possibly 18 if the thing they're attacking is living and within an inch of them, which frequently is the case. You can use them then out on flanks. You can use them in a lot of ways. So you're going to see them. Blood Trackers are a possibility, so now we're getting into the realm where they have stealth and they're single wound, so that's kind of defensively what's keeping them alive. Armor 14 will keep a few alive against some blast damage, so the armor from the feet, but they're not really taking advantage of that armor portion, but they sure are taking advantage of the strength portion. And they bring a more accurate option into your list. So Wolf Riders are Mat 7, Rat 6. They can jump in the back sometimes and things like that. But Blood Trackers, because they have access to prey, can start making some Rat 8, Mat 8 type attacks against things, and sometimes they'll even get the opportunity to aim. And then with reroll, so that makes them one of the more accurate options. I mentioned the twins. Most of our solos are pretty solid here. The White Mane does bring some extra accuracy with Veteran Leader, which does affect Iona, which can be very useful. The Blood Shaman, I would say, is optional. Iona doesn't really need it to reduce the cost of her spells. She does like it to put a Hunter's Mark out from time to time. You can certainly use it to ensure something like Call can take out a super hard target or Lord of the Feast. She has magic weapons, so there's that. The Night Witch is very strong with her, in my opinion. Bloodweavers are one of the units that people tend to be kind of meh about, and I think that's unfortunate. I think that was the last video I did, the last model unit video I did, and you can still get them up to power and strength 14. The fact that one of the benefits with the Wolf Riders, the Blood Trackers, and the Bloodweavers is Wolf Riders are really fast. Blood Trackers and Bloodweavers can get advanced deploy, and now you have a Warlock who can get up the table significantly faster. So that's just something else to keep in mind with that. But Bloodweavers being able to ambush also gives you some options in that regard. So that's, and with signs, you're talking about power 14, signs importance, Mat 8 attacks because of gang, which again brings you, now you're like a signs importance Mat 8 with a reroll is actually really, really accurate. And if you really are concerned about accuracy, you can also still throw in the White Mane and get them even more accurate. So not something to discount. The Wolf Rider champions are phenomenal. If they get in the back of a juicy target on the feet turn, it's gonna take a hurting pretty bad. If you live the dream of charging in the back arc of something, whew, good times. In case you can get that, that was woo. So those are all good options, frankly. You'll probably play one Ravager Shaman with her, in my opinion. Unless you're only playing one unit of Ravagers, which I've not so far seen with her, I don't think it's necessarily terrible. If you're only playing one and that's your Surefoot target, then the Shaman is a little debatable, but in my opinion, I would always include a Shaman, especially if you're going double Ravager. Try to keep your Ravagers either all in there if you're putting Surefoot somewhere else, or keep the Shaman with the one unit that needs the no knockdown. And the real reason that you always want to make sure you do that is that, yes, the no knockdown is very important and is the difference between, you know, you having one or two more Ravagers throughout the game and ready to go than you expected to. But it also provides magic weapons, which means that I've talked about this in a bunch of places, but my opinion is all players skill equal that Iona, assuming she has a Tharn Ravager Shaman, and possibly using a Night Witch, should be favored into essentially every matchup Crix can provide. I've not found one not to be the case. I haven't practiced them all. I haven't played them all. A lot of them have been theory. Some of it's been play. But I think that's not to say Crix can't win, but I don't think you could blame the list at that point. You have all of the tools you need. If it's Gatsby with Slayers, you have the infantry killing power to kill the Slayers, as well as the backup in your battle group. If it's if it's incorporeal infantry, the Shaman's there to make sure you have magic weapons when you need it, and if you have Bloodweavers and a few other things, you have some more magic weapons. If it's things like Banes, you should be out threatening them much of the time. If it's, et cetera, right? Like, I just don't see a ton of places where you're not going to end up okay. Like, if they bring infantry, if they bring Crix infantry to the fight, like, you brought Tharn, and they get corpses from undead, so you win. I'm sure there's some list out there that's an exception to all of this, but I have not theorized it at present. If they have like a long assassination, certainly watch out for that, but Iona tends to be pretty safe from that. If you're super concerned, she can have Surefoot, she can have Earth's Blessing, she can camp a lot, she is stealth, she can't be targeted by combined attacks or backstrikes. Like, there's a lot going on there. Anyways, I'm going to kind of cut it there. Like I said, that's Iona. That's sort of a broad view of what she does, what she's about, and what she kind of likes to play with. I maybe didn't say this, but she's to be played in Devourer's House. I do not see any... I could not make an argument that was valid to play her in any other theme. If you do it, sure, have fun, but... yeah. Oh, and I didn't really talk about Dodge, her leadership ability, but it is very, very relevant. And it's one of the things... yeah, before we wrap up, there were two more things. So Dodge, make sure you have that in the right place to really make your opponent have to recalculate how he approaches attacks, right? Like, Defense 13 isn't that fantastic sometimes, but if you know that if you miss, you might end up losing some significant pieces of your army, it's much more important. And then obviously you can jack that up to 15, sometimes 17, etc. So positioning her so that she's getting the most out of that 9-inch bubble of command is very important. To help with that, I actually think you much of the time are going to want to have a Werewolf Stalker with her, because she's going to be able to cast Lightning Strike, which means she can go up, get in a position she wants, kill a guy, get her feet out there, Blood Boon out an attack, or out a spell, which is one of the ways you can get a Hunter's Mark or a Pursuit out. And then you want to be able to put her in a safe place, because she can do some work, and she is decently hard to kill, but there's really no reason much of the game to even tempt your opponent into that, and so Lightning Strike is very good for that. Other animi that are of note, Earth's Blessing to me is very good, especially on the turns she can't put Surefoot on herself. And Theoretically, you could bring a Pureblood for Wraithbane, but generally because you're focusing a bit more on units, you may not be looking to take enough advantage of that. Getorix would be fine. A Riphorn would be fine. Neither of those are like necessary, but Getorix to me is very phenomenal. If you ever have the points, you should consider him. I tend to focus a little bit more on the units. So I've tested Stalker Gnarlhorn for Battle Group and Stalker, the Brett Fogel version. Both are very good. I would definitely... Oh, and there's been some people who've been playing her with a single Storm Raptor. I think that's interesting. I don't know if it's good, but it does bring a big range presence that the list otherwise wouldn't have. And late game could still be a pretty big pain for your opponent to deal with. So definitely something to consider. Yeah. So we'll go ahead and wrap it there. So that's Iona the Unseen. Now she has been seen for a bit, so her name is a lie. But hopefully that was helpful. Like I said, we'll probably have some episodes talking about list builds or results from some of the lists I've been playing. I have a few tournaments coming up, as I mentioned. And as always, we'll see you. Thank you for watching. Make sure you subscribe, hit the thumbs up, etc. if you enjoyed the video, and we will see you next time.